I don't know the women's names who I'm always passing by on my street.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. It is I, Emily Sophia, here to break down the latest episode of Better Call Saul for you. So we're on, season 1, episode 8? All freaking ready? And it's Rico. That's the name of the episode. So spoiler alert before we dive into the mad thick of things, as I will be bearing all in this review. And without further ado, let's kick it, get right into it. And also, I apologize for the potentially weird lighting that I have going on here. I'm just messing with the visual quality a bit here. But, so this was a particularly interesting episode. I say that every single week. There will just be one time where I come on and I'm like, that was completely lost on me. I was hopelessly bored. But that's not going to happen because we're dealing with Vince Gilligan and he knows what's going on. So our dearly beloved Jimmy McGill has come quite a far way from representing kids who broke into a morgue and frickin', had sex with a corpse. Like, it's been a while since those days, and still he is hustling, still he is striving as much as ever to make ends meet, to have an upstanding business, to establish himself, and really to work for himself, because every time he has been placed in a position where there is someone over him, someone who can mobilize him and move him places within a company, well, he gets told off right in front of his celebration cake, washed away in the dreary sound of the infinite nothingness of a copier. That was really quite a poetic moment. I have to say that I love the way that sound was used in this episode. Sound and then the lack thereof, as we as the audience were trapped on the other side of the glass, watching Howard Hamlin have right at Jimmy's celebration cake, take his cake and eat it too, and tell him maybe another 6 months. And it's been another 6 months, many sets of 6 months for Jimmy, and thus here he is out on his own, more or less, but now with the partnership of his brother. So we have got a tenuous McGill and McGill liaison here as they're tackling what could be a multi-million-dollar case of racketeering involving an assisted living facility, Sandpiper. So here is the situation at hand. For as much as it seems that Jimmy is finally at long freaking last on the up and up, and he deserves it, Sir Mozart Dumpster Diver, the fear is now that he is in cahoots with his brother. Finally, they are working together as partners, something that Jimmy never even got to experience when he was trying to elevate himself from the lowly mailroom position to one of actually, performing and practicing law. And he passes the bar exam, and even then, after, third time's a charm, like your virginity, as he says, he has to fish for the slightest semblance of an accolade from his oh-so-successful brother. And then all of that just gets bashed right over the head by Sir Hamlin, whose the copy room code was 1933, the year that Hitler came to power. That was rich. That was a beautiful moment, and I think that one that we can all sympathize with, as we have followed Jimmy's very difficult and uncomfortable journey. And uncomfortable certainly touches on quite a few aspects of this week's episode. We see the lengths to which Jimmy will go to represent his clients. And I mean, I've said it before, I will say it again, say it to my grave, in the grave, and beyond. This guy is a master of his craft, and he has quite a few stigmas to overcome. He has quite a few everythings to overcome, and yet this guy does it. It doesn't matter what stage he's on. It's very Shakespearean, you know, all the world's a stage for Sir McGill, and that will someday culminate in his becoming Saul Goodman. But in the meantime, he is squashed under mountains of grotesque trash from the elder folks' home, doing his damnedest to recover the evidence that was being shredded as he feigned an IBS attack in the bathroom and filed his complaint. And then realizes, after a delightful conversation on the phone about going to see the Magic Flute Opera from, you know, the opera house, getting bagfuls of adult diapers thrown upon him, he comes forth and realizes that, hey, you know, these relatively not upstanding citizens who are doing their sinister misdeeds and fraud and racketeering, well, at least they bothered to go green and recycle. Not the kind of thing that Jimmy would have expected of these folks, especially with how they treated him and are trying to separate him from his clients, who he is trying to protect from them. So we see that, once again, doing the right thing is next to freaking impossible. But he's gaining. And he's got the partnership of his brother, who is a rock star in the business, one who continues to be renowned despite his long absence from any kind of formal practice from so much as touching electricity. We saw him last week attempting to acclimate himself to the world around him, to the electromagnetic energy, to get better. And again, all of this has been running parallel with the rise of Jimmy's practice, with his establishment of some sort of reputable career. At the very same time, Chuck is realizing that perhaps it's time to ditch the space blanket and reach for the stars. So we see their journeys run in parallel, and not only do they run in parallel, but they seem to inform one another. Particularly, Chuck seems to be keeping pace with Jimmy as Jimmy is making these strides to do good, to do right by whoever he's working for. And that all culminates in this incredibly powerful and surreal moment at the end of the episode where Jimmy is crashing on the couch and Chuck, being determined as he is to pursue this $20 million case, and he's got to have those files out in the car, out where all the electromagnetic madness dwells. And it doesn't faze him for a moment. He trumps right on freaking out there, opens the mailbox, grabs the keys, we feel the anxiety for him because he doesn't feel it, and that scares us, which is just kind of the brilliance of that whole thing. But he's so unfazed until, of course, he sees Jimmy utterly fazed and realizes, I think for the very first time, in this incredibly clarifying moment, we get this awesome long shot of, the cameras immediately pull away from this very intimate, jaw-dropping scene where just breaths are being held, and we are forced to be pulled back from that to see the scope of this. And it's really just this very peaceful scene when we don't see the looks on their faces, when we're not up close in it, when we don't have that physical immediacy. And so it's that kind of ironic juxtaposition that makes it such an awesome and then weirdly scary moment to end off on, because everything is hanging in the balance. What is this going to mean for Chuck? And ultimately, I think that the big fear here is that there's still some kind of contract that Chuck has with HHM, meaning that if this goes to freaking class action, like they're going to the big leagues, HHM could still have a claim on the case, wrenching it away from Jimmy's grasp, everything that he has sought to accomplish. And with all the distance that he has endeavored to put between himself and HHM, I mean, he's running through the catacombs of the system, trying to run things by Kim, and he still has these tenuous connections, and he and Howard play at being civil, beyond the whole copying suit and the billboard shenanigans of days gone by. Still, Jimmy is very much not about the system, but he's going to work through the system to make good for himself, to have his freaking own cake, to celebrate his own life, to get what he's worked for. And we know that somewhere along the way, things are going to go horribly wrong and otherwise, but yeah. So that is kind of the big fear, is what's going to become of this relationship that they've forged, with the way that they're mutually reinforcing one another's successes. Is that all going to fade away as Chuck finally comes out physically into the light, is the big question. Because now that he realizes that all it took to cure himself of what ailed him was simply getting lost in his work, the very work that he has kept himself from because of this illness. It's this crazy clarifying moment that could change everything, and I do feel it's going to be a huge game changer, as will be the fact that they use Chuck's printing code at the office. It's all coming out now. He is in the light. Everything is in the light. Jimmy was content to dwell in the shadows and to bring all of this together with his brother, the late nights and the coffee and the taping all these shredded documents back together by candlelight. It's this very, really, Jimmy is so focused on, I think at the heart of it, getting praise from his brother, being able to, he really measures his success by what what little he has of his family thinks of him. And of course, he can get it in cash or check or cash. He's obviously looking to make a little something, but at the same time, this is what matters to him. And so, yes, he's using HHM to try and get something that he and his brother can work on, but now the question is that going to be taken away from him as well? And is that going to contribute to who he ends up becoming later on in the form of Saul Goodman? Is he going to lose Chuck back to the corporate ladder? Is Chuck going to resume his place of former glory? And what will that mean? What will that mean for Jimmy? I feel like for some reason I feel like I might have switched Jimmy and Chuck's names, and I apologize if I did. Fix it in your mind. I will. There's no going back. But yeah, just as always, an incredibly entertaining and emotive episode, getting to see these interesting flashbacks that inform the person of Jimmy today. The choices that he makes, the stability that he is trying to attain, and not merely stability, but to be on the up and up. And he is getting that. He is doing this by sinking his teeth into this case of systematic fraud. The guy is talented as all get out. And yet what's crazy is that the further he gets, we know there is something that is going to wrench him back, that is going to push him and break him. And, the days of Slippin' Jimmy aren't quite gone, no matter how much we wish it so. And so that is the tragedy, again, of Shakespearean proportions that is unfolding here. This journey we are going on. And then we also got to see this week too a little bit more into the life and times of Mike. And his territory is definitely reminding me of the Breaking Bad days, and we see what leads him to where we first encounter him in the Breaking Bad series. Little Kaylee and her mother Stacy are in need of financial support, trying to navigate the the life beyond her husband and the loss that they're all dealing with. And for as much of a stickler and by-the-book man as Mike appears to be, especially when it comes to his sticker tyranny, well, all that changes when Kaylee's in the picture. You call him up, you don't need your friggin' stickers, go stick your car wherever the crap you want. Grandpa's got a job to do. And that is what makes Mike such an incredibly lovable character, is the fierce loyalty that he has to the ones that he loves and the lengths that he is willing to go to in order to provide. And he knows what he's good at. You know, he can take the work that he wants. He heads right on over to the vets and begins to pry into those other sorts of opportunities in the shadows. And we get the sense of just what those kinds of things are, and yet that line of work doesn't take away from his end mission, and he wants everything to go to Kaylee, and he always did in Breaking Bad as well. So we see the foundation of that. We see where perhaps he's starting to work his way to Mr. Gus Fring, perhaps. So, and you know, that scene too at the veterinary clinic reminded me it reminded me of like John Wick. You got all these like badass rugged hero types that are, you know, like getting their medical procedures, their surgeries done in back rooms at vet clinics, because hey, you know, they're the old dogs. They're not going by the standard way. This is the way of Mr. Mike, Magic Mike, if you will. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where his story goes, and we know that he and Jimmy are inevitably going to be on some other kind of crash course in the future, but in the meantime, their lives are going forward, and they are both bound for the delightful tragedies that many of us know await them in the days to come. And if you haven't seen Breaking Bad, when I say tragedy, I don't necessarily mean death, so don't be looking at me like that. I feel you through the screen. I feel your judgment. I feel your wrath, and I would suggest that you put that on standby and just channel your energies into Breaking Bad and just experience that. That's all I have to say in the matter. So, yeah, as far as all the other nitty-gritty details of the episodes go, by all means, look up a written review for that jazz and the legalese and things that are going on. It's like, I know enough to understand, but I'm not going to just regurgitate it all because I'm going to butcher it. People will be sad and angry. Basically, I'm kind of dealing with like the emotional fiber of the show and the way all that was striking me. But as always, I am very impressed by the ways in which the show handles the lengths that Jimmy goes to. His dedication and the over dedication that leads him into the dumpster and over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house he goes to get her freaking money back. That is the way of this. So as much as it seems like he is making enormous strides forward from where he was initially, now that he's got Chuck in the picture, it is make or break time. And I don't sense it's going to be the former. I really, really don't. It's crazy to me just how swiftly this the finale is coming up. Like, I've fallen so in love with the show. You know, every single week I have watched every episode twice, namely because I end up watching it later with my brother, who, yes, does in fact very much enjoy electromagnetism. He's a computer scientist, so we watch TV together. You know what I wonder? Perhaps by the season finale, we're going to see Chuck turn his lights on, get his utilities going, you know? I wonder about that. I'm scared. I'm so used to seeing that house, and it's all, you know, shadowy, and like we've grown accustomed to that kind of darkness, because it's sort of this sacred space between Jimmy and Chuck, where Jimmy feels that he can bring Chuck up and out of himself now that he's in the light, is he going to, you know, go soar into the sun and leave Jimmy behind once again? I don't know. There's also talk of Kimmy possibly even betraying Jimmy, and I don't know about that. We know that they've had a very close relationship in the past, as is evidenced by the full-on smooch as they're, you know, finding out about their bar exams and everything, but, you know, theirs is a very fascinating connection too, and sort of in the negotiation stages as well. But yeah, I love the way that we've been made to care so much for these characters through all the craziness. And just for fun, who do you think is the next Breaking Bad cameo that we're going to see in the show? See, as for me, I haven't like looked up every single piece of news about the show, so I just don't know at this point. But honestly, I'm really feeling a Jesse Pinkman cameo come on sometime. I really would dig that. I mean, I know that at the moment, Jimmy is in elder law, but as to how long that's going to last, again, I think a lot of it hinges on what transpires with Chuck. And perhaps if all this goes south, this could, you know, sour the entire line of business for Jimmy, and he elects to reinvent himself once again, you know? All the world's a stage, and we've seen him take on quite a few, so you never know. But man, has the show been such a pleasure to watch and review. I thank you guys just so much for joining me in this. Yeah, leave all your thoughts and comments in the comments. Yeah, anything that I missed, I'd be more than happy to address with you if I'm able. And yeah, so 2 episodes more. Season finale of The Walking Dead next week. More Bates Motel. Game of Thrones is right around the corner, guys. So keep your butts nearby. And as always, I will be back before you know it.